All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Soft Elbows. I'm Steve Yonda. Abby Richards, I believe, in protest, just straight up quit the show. She's given up weightlifting. She's just had enough of my bullshit and of everything else. But no, I'm kidding. Abby couldn't make it today, but we are very excited. We are joined by Alea Helmick, who, in addition to being a former CrossFit Games athlete, and in addition to owning a gym, CrossFit Revamped in Laurel, Maryland, with her husband Gary, her and Gary also host what is now soon will become an annual lifting event in the area. We're going to talk a lot about that. It's called the Ladder Lifting Challenge. Aaliyah, we got a lot to talk about today. How you feeling?
I feel really excited. I'm excited that I'm on your podcast. I feel like that's a really big honor and privilege. So we're excited to share our story and a little bit more about the ladder.
First person in the history of the podcast to say you are honored to be on Soft Elbows. And we're going to tell Abby it's solely because she's not here, right? The honor is
Definitely not.
exclusively because you're just talking to me. No, I'm kidding. Before we get to all of that, we got a couple of local things that we want to discuss. The first one, and Abby was there for this, the Baltimore Open took place this past weekend. We had a bunch of local lifters do very, very well, as they always do. Brett Myers and the folks from BAM Weightlifting, they showed up in force. They all did incredibly well. We also had some folks from DC Weightlifting, including one, Hannah Gilmore, who we had to, semi-force through good-natured ribbing on this podcast to sign up for a weightlifting competition. She has done that. Hannah got her first meet out of the way. Her next couple meets are going to be even better. I heard a rumor from Abby, so Hannah, you can blame Abby for me putting this out there. I heard a rumor that she's going to sign up for Cap City and that she's going to absolutely crush it there. There'll be other folks from DC Weightlifting who will also be out there. Alea, what would we have to do? Like, how much pressure would we have to apply for you to sign up for a local weightlifting meet?
I mean, I would do it. I don't
Yeah.
think yeah, I would because I
Okay.
feel like it's fun and there's not much pressure. Like I'm 6 months postpartum. I have two kids, running a gym. I'm a full-time teacher. So like given all of those parameters, like I would just go out there to have fun. I
Which is the
also would
Go ahead. I'm
need like
sorry.
a ton of guidance. Like I don't know essentially how things would have to go. So yeah, I would need a good coach.
But like that's the best attitude to have, and honestly, like I wish we could like have you do a tutorial on how to just like have that attitude at a weightlifting meet. And one of the things I wanted to discuss with you later is kind of the difference between the CrossFit setting and the weightlifting setting, like in terms of competitions and how you guys are trying to kind of mold both of those with your event. But just briefly, it's got to be a huge advantage to have that attitude when you've competed at the level that you've competed at, right? Like I imagine not a whole lot of things get to you, not a whole lot of things feel like pressure to you at this point.
Yeah, I feel like they had, like, coming off of being a super competitive athlete, those months and years that were closest to my pinnacle of my performance, those were the hardest to not compare to my old self. But now there's so much time that has passed. We're looking like at 10 years, almost 9 years, um, that it's a little bit easier. Time's passed. I've fallen into a new role as a mom, more of a teacher, more as a gym owner. So instead of being so personalized as to my own fitness, I'm kind of there to just live a healthy lifestyle and not put so much pressure on myself.
Um, we're actually now going to get. I want to hear more about what you have to say about that because I think there's a lot of different things we can dive into there. We're gonna push that just for now to later in the show. I want to discuss a couple more things. First, I just realized I believe I said Hannah competes for DC weightlifting. She actually competes for DC barbell, two very different clubs, both of which are very good clubs. And DC barbell had a couple other folks that competed this weekend that I want to mention. Andres Alvarez was named best male lifter. He snatched 125 and clean and jerked 145, and I am jealous because I can't do that. Um, and also, we would be remiss if we didn't point out that Mike Choi was in attendance. Mike Choi, I believe, still is. in hiding. He used to compete himself, and now I don't think it's the pressure. I think it's what did Abby tell me? He's just really old, and I don't think his body can move that way anymore. And I'm open to him coming on the show and proving me wrong. But for the meantime, we'll just assume I'm right. But no, Baltimore Open was a great meet, and I'm sure Michael Choi had a good time watching other people do things he used to be able to do. In terms of events that are coming up, we've got American Open Series 1. That's more commonly known as the Arnold. That's in Columbus. Alea, I don't think they've got a CrossFit. I'm pretty sure they don't have a CrossFit component. Are you familiar with the Arnold?
Well, yeah. So like back in the day, early on at the Arnold, Gary did the open workout at the Arnold, like back in like 2012 or 2013.
Okay.
There was like I just remember it so vividly, some sort of largish room, and it was just like so different than what else was going on at the Arnold, just like a bunch of like grunge CrossFit people doing workouts. But yes, I remember it was a really cool experience.
That is a great way to describe the Arnold, which is a very large room with a bunch of different things going on. No one really has any idea what's happening, and the FDA certainly doesn't exist in that space, which is good for everyone. But no, so we got the Arnold coming up. We got a bunch of local lifters competing in that, and we will for sure talk more about that as we get a little bit closer. And then casting a net a little bit further into the spring, we have Spring Fling, which is going to be hosted by East Coast Gold down in Virginia Beach. That'll be April 12th. We're going to have at least a handful of local lifters going down there and competing with that group of very, very talented athletes. So we're excited about that. And then Cap City, which I mentioned earlier, that'll be held in DC, and that'll be, I believe, April 27th or 28th, one of those two. It's in later April. That'll be a great time as well. There were two other things that I wanted to bring up before we dive into the ladder lifting challenge. One, we told you last week for all, I don't know, half dozen of you that watch every episode of the show, that we were going to do a segment called that had to do with where Abby is in relation to a barbell. Abby was very open about talking about how she's struggled lately with just kind of like getting motivated and finding the right ways to move with a barbell. And so she very graciously was going to talk about her process and getting back to where I know her to be and where she knows her to be, which is a very high level weightlifter. She wants to talk about that herself, which I think is perfectly reasonable. But just to provide an update, she's still lifting a barbell. She's still lifting it well, and she's still having a good time doing it. Maybe not like in the moment a good time doing it every time, but like every weightlifter can relate to that. But in general, still loves the sport, and that's one of the reasons why we love her. So this next update will tie into, it'll be a good segue for the ladder lifting challenge, because our last bit of news for anyone who didn't see it, Winter Montgomery, who is a local lifter. She lifts at CHFP weightlifting in Alexandria. She announced last week that she has signed to lift in college at Louisiana State University Shreveport, which is super cool on so many levels.
Oh, I saw that.
So cool. One, the fact that people can weightlift in college is phenomenal, because I'm sure that existed when I was in college back in like the 60s, but it just didn't seem like it was getting as much press. So I think it's awesome that she loves the sport enough that she wants to continue doing it. I think it's awesome that LSUS offers those opportunities to people, and specifically to her. And I also think it's cool that she's going to lift at LSUS, because that's where her coach, Kara Head Slaughter, lifted when she was in college. And that worked out well for Kara for a number of reasons, to include the fact that she made a couple of Olympic teams, which is not easy to do. So hoping that Winter can follow in Kara's footsteps in all of those ways. But at minimum, I hope she has a great time, and I'm very proud of her. And this is my segue, she lifted at the ladder lifting challenge. Alea, what'd you think of Winter? What'd you think? Well, you got to see her lift in person. What'd you think?
I did. And I didn't know too much about her prior, but I saw her lift, and then I came up to her after, and I was just kind of complimenting her form, her effort, her demeanor, her whole attitude at the competition. So it was really cool to see her in action. And then later on, notice that she was recruited to do weightlifting in college. So that's pretty amazing. So I was super impressed. I mean, you guys had brought, we can go into depth, but her in particular was definitely a standout.
I'm envious of her in so many different ways. But one is just like she just moves the bar so fluidly. Like when you watch me lift, it looks like I'm doing something difficult because I'm really giving it everything I've got to just hoist the bar in the air. And when Winter lifts, it looks just like a very graceful. I know it's not effortless, but it
Mm-hmm.
looks effortless because she just like moves the bar very fluidly through the air. And I have never been able to do that, and I'm jealous.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think her long levers, like super long
Yes,
legs, nice tall thin frame, long arms on the barbell. I feel like that adds to like the smoothness and gracefulness of the lift.
for sure, for sure. And her mother, Gwen, also lifted at Ladder Lifting Challenge. We'll go into to the details of who lifted there and the great things that they did here in a second. But just to give everybody kind of the background and the context of the event, it's called the Ladder Lifting Challenge, which I have a confession. I have a confession. Even
Yeah.
though on everything that you guys write, it's called the Ladder Lifting Challenge, for months I have been
Yeah.
referring to it to my friends on this show as the Lifting Ladder Challenge. I don't know why my
I
brain
know,
just
I heard
told
it.
it.
It's fine.
I'm so
It's fine.
sorry. I did not mean to disrespect your very, very well run event. But then, literally, the moment the event ended, I was looking at something and I said, I've been doing this wrong all along. It is called the Ladder Lifting Challenge. And can you talk to me about how did this idea come about?
Yeah. So my husband and I ran Vector Games, which is like a CrossFit style event for like the last 13 seasons, if not more, because there was a point where we did two vectors in 1 year. And so it's been a long time since we did something new and fresh. And what we wanted to do was bring something to the community that was different than these typical local CrossFit meets. We wanted them something different, something new, fresh, because just like you said, you know, Abby was losing touch with the barbell and she wanted to find that inspiration again. Well, that same kind of stuff happens with CrossFitters. And so we wanted to find something that kind of brought new life and a fresh new idea to the space. So my husband and I pretty much mulled on the idea for about a year. We didn't want to just pull the trigger too soon and then it not be what we had hoped it to be. So we sat in it for a year. We pondered the different weights in the ladder because the weights had to be thoughtful. Because if nobody could make it to the podium or if all of the people made it to the platform, then it would lose its flair, right? We wanted maybe not everyone to make it to the platform bar, but a good majority, and then really those elite competitors under that spotlight
Sure.
in their division, right? So the elite scales, the
Right.
elite RX. In our first year, we also had an elite division. It was a small sign up, so we nixed it this year. And some of those elite people kind of filtered into the RX, but it
I
again it added
noticed.
to the flavor. Oh yes,
I did
yes,
notice that.
yes. So we just thought of bringing something new and fresh, and so we decided, what does everyone like to do? Everyone likes to lift the barbell. Everybody, right? So on the days that we've got the long cardio pieces in the gym, we have less signups than when we have 1 rep max days and strength cycle days and stuff like that because people are excited to do those things. So then we also thought about the grand scheme of the outskirts, right? So like instead of just CrossFit people, who else is interested in that? Well, the whole weightlifting community. And we are also, our idea was kind of like, I don't know, made to feel a lot more I don't know, like validated when we were asked to do the WSO weightlifting championship at Revamped. And so we're like, this just makes sense. Like, so then we decided to do the ladder lifting challenge, which was a series of barbells. So the CrossFit component is the time domain. It's a little bit shorter. For weightlifting people, it's going to feel like cardio. For CrossFit people, it's going to feel like rest. And then the weightlifting component, because these barbells are going extremely heavy, and the CrossFit people may or may not be able to hang with the Ollie lifters. So it was a mix of both worlds.
Just real briefly, because I want to go into kind of the nuts and bolts of how the competition works. I think it's really unique, and I think that's part of what makes it a special event. But both you and Gary, we kind of glossed over this at the beginning. You were a games athlete. Correct me if I'm wrong. You were a games athlete in 2016 as an individual, and then 2017 on a team. Is that right? And
Yeah,
then and Gary was individual in 2013 and 2016, and teams, I think, for a couple of seasons after that. Is that right?
team on 17, and then masters this
Masters.
past
Okay.
August. Yeah.
All right. And it's not like you guys just like happened to compete at the games. Like you got second place in one of the events the year that you went, right? Like so, like you weren't just like happy to be there. Like you were like like showing up like people who were like training for this for their entire lives, right? Like you did very well. Is that am I?
I mean, no, like we ended up middle of the pack-ish, middle bottom, like 26th and 27th overall, okay, out of 40 people. But there were some events that if you look historically, Gary and I trained together, right? So some of
Yeah.
those events that we did at the games, if I did well and Gary would do well. So
Okay.
females would go first and then the guys after. So our training would kind of like parallel each other. And then the workouts we both did poorly in, we both would do poorly because our training would obviously reflect, that kind of thing. But yeah, that was cool.
When you guys were training, at that time, was it difficult? You were both training together, both training at a very high level, and to your point, like, did you both kind of have blind spots? Might be too harsh of a word, but like when it came to, I don't know if you guys were programming for yourself or how you guys were managing that part, but to your point, like when one of you did well, the other one did well because you were training together, and when the other one did
Mhm.
not as well, the other one also seemed to follow suit. Do you think that was
Mhm.
like a reflection of you guys maybe not, like, I don't know, like, I don't know if this question makes any sense. Like, were the blind spots the same because you both were training together, or how did
Yeah.
that go?
Yeah, probably like a gap in our training, most likely.
Okay.
Yeah. Like one of the workouts that we did well in was a D-ball workout, which is those heavy sandbaggy ball
Yeah.
things, and you toss it over your shoulder. And like 6 months prior to the games, we got those at our gym. And so we trained
Okay.
those like over and over and over. And we both got like pretty much top 5, I think, something like that.
Okay.
And so it just reflects our training. But like on maybe a longer endurance style workout like Murph, right? So we've done Murph forever, but like the style of Murph, maybe we should have trained more harder, intenser, faster intervals versus
Okay.
like these longer endurance pieces.
And that's like I mean, from my vantage point, like the impossible part of CrossFit is there's, I don't know, 40 billion things you have to be very, very good at. And like,
Yeah,
how do you have time to like train for
you
them all?
don't. You don't. Yeah, I mean, there's things that we did at the games that we never touched before, and that we're
Oh
just
yeah.
like, all right, we're just gonna go and figure it out.
And that's really, I imagine, the test of like how good of an athlete are you. Like, can you do this thing that you've never done before at this level in front of a bunch of the best athletes in the world?
Yeah.
And you did. And
Gary
just
did better at that. He's definitely a more athlete than I am, so he was more adaptable in those ways.
I'm not trying to speak ill of Gary while he's not here to defend himself. Did he ever finish second in an individual event in the games? I don't think he did.
I don't know. I don't think
Homework.
so.
All right, Gary, I'm so sorry. This wasn't intended to be like a let's talk bad about Gary's situation. Let's come back to the ladder lifting challenge. Mike, I wanted to bring up both of your athletic backgrounds as a way of asking like how your athletic backgrounds informed the creation of this event. I'm guessing that it would have been taken a different shape had you guys not had that high level, both competitive experience, but also you guys were high level competitors. You also have run CrossFit Revamp for several years, certainly several years before you started this event. How did those experiences inform the way that you guys kind of crafted this thing?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think at this point it's like we don't know any different. Gary and I both have super high standards for ourselves, our gym, our programming, the kinds of things we put out into the community. Like they're going to be really thoughtful, and they're going to come from a place that's like a good place. Like the root of this isn't let's make as much money as possible. The root of this is let's see if we can merge the CrossFit and weightlifting community under one roof, because we all are lovers of weightlifting. So it's like the bigger idea versus just, I don't know, maybe those superficial kinds of things. We also have just like a lot of experience as to like what things look like on a grand scale, such as the games, and like smaller scale, some local competitions that we've been a part of and participated in it. So I think just having that scope of knowledge just helps us to think about some of the pitfalls that we don't want to fall into, and then think of some of the highlights, because ideally we want to highlight every single athlete and their hard work. So how can we do that the most effectively? And thought about the spotlight component as highlighting in the most dramatic form. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, just the other like avenue, the volunteers and that kind of like behind the scenes stuff. We just pull people that we rely on. They've got a ton of experience, whether they've volunteered for us at Vector in the past or members of our gym or the greater community. There are people that we can really rely on. And so we can easily delegate versus having to do all of those things ourselves.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the spotlight component, but to do that, I think we got to set it up by talking about kind of the structure of the overall event. So there were multiple heats. There were so each team is either male or female, and as you mentioned earlier, there was a scale division for both males and females. There was an RX division for males and females as well. When each heat started, there were 6 stations, 6 different places on the ladder, if you will, like 6 different weights to lift. You went first time through with the snatch. So if my partner was Chris, so Chris and I started the ladder and we took the first weight. We had 50 seconds, 50 seconds, which I don't care what you guys say is not a lot of time. It's actually a disgustingly little amount of time, but that's a personal gripe for me because I'm out of shape. You have 50 seconds for each of us to snatch whatever the first weight was. And then there's a 10-second interval. And then you have 50 seconds to lift the next, whatever that next highest weight is. And then another 10-second interval, and then 50 seconds and 10, 50 seconds and 10. Now, hypothetically, because this definitely didn't happen on Saturday, let's say I missed my attempt at the weight and Chris made his. I've got the remainder of that 50 seconds to try to make it. I can take a second attempt or a third attempt if I could squeeze it in. But once that 50 seconds ends, if one partner in a team has made it and the other one doesn't, the other partner gets to continue to climb the ladder, and the other partner just follows and cheers them on, but doesn't get to take any of those attempts. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, yeah, everything's correct.
And then the 7th and 8th weights on the ladder are you guys call it the spotlight bar, where it's actually a really cool setup for anyone who hasn't been to CrossFit Revamped. It's a great space. As Alea mentioned, we hosted the WSO championships there last fall. It's actually a great enough space. As a brief tangent, I'm just an ideas guy. What if, especially if your members seem to show up just for like the strength training and the 1 rep max days, what if we just converted your gym into a purely weightlifting gym?
Yeah, that would take a lot of convincing. I really think so.
All right. Well, we'll circle back to it. You don't have to decide now. We'll get back to it later. But we get to the 7th and 8th weights on the ladder, if you will, are called the spotlight bar. They turn all the lights in the gym off with the exception of, I believe you had 2 spotlights overhead shining down on that one platform. So it creates a really cool environment. There were one of the things I was most impressed with about this event was the number of people who came just to like watch and support. And especially in year 2 of an event like this, that is not really CrossFit, not really weightlifting, like to bring a bunch of people who really were just there to have a good time. It was super impressive, but the lights go out, the spotlight comes on just on the platform of the person who's lifting. And then that person gets to lift under a spotlight in front of a bunch of people who are going wild, wanting them to lift. In some cases, people were PRing on that platform, which, it's awesome to PR in any environment, but like to do it in that one, I think is like got to be a cool experience. I wouldn't know because I didn't make it to the spotlight, but it sure seemed like a great environment. Where did you guys come up with that idea for the spotlight component of the ladder?
it hasn't been done before, and we didn't want to replicate something or copy something that's already been done. And we were just thinking about that pyramid style ladder approach. And we're like, okay, we'll get a platform. Okay, the platform will be the last one that people get to see. And that's the cool feature. And we're like, okay, it's not enough. There's something else that needs to be done so that it really brings it to life and puts the focus on that lifter. And so we thought about a spotlight, but then didn't think about turning the lights off. And then we're like, what if we just turned all the lights off? And so we played around with it. We hung the spotlight, we tried it out, and we're like, okay, this is really cool. Like even the chalk gives effect. So when the athletes are using chalk, it just feels like more of a grandiose environment than when the lights are on.
If you're at a distance, it looks like there's like a fog machine, like creating like a little ambiance. Like it's pretty cool. The first time that, I don't know who suggested it, you or Gary or somebody else, like the first time someone suggested like, hey, let's turn all the lights off, was anyone like, I don't is
well,
this
usually a lot of our idea happening usually happens at home. We're just like spitballing ideas because it's a safe space. And so we're just like, what about this? What about that? So I don't know. It was either Gary or I who thought of it. I want to say it might have been Gary to turn the lights off, my idea for the spotlight. So again, like this combination of ideas. And then we got the spotlight from a friend, one that was like more industrial size, because we bought two that were just like not as bright, where that circle kind of encompasses the lifter. So and then it really made a statement.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, this year you guys didn't have a third like elite division. So some, I don't know how many, some of the folks that would have competed in the elite division or did last year and loved the event, so they came back, they competed in the RX division. And that created, I imagine, maybe longer than you guys thought, like a longer time with the lights out, because like there was this guy in the RX division, Dimitri Albury, and forgive me, whoever Dimitri's partner was, I don't remember your name, but you were also a very, very good lifter. Luke, thank you so much. Yes. This is why we have you on the show. Dimitri and Luke lifted for, I don't know, an hour and a half on the spotlight bar as we just like kept increasing the weight and they kept making it look easy. So we're like, I guess we'll keep going. It got to the point on the clean and jerks, Dimitri Albury, I believe, if I remember correctly, I only know this in kilos because I don't in pounds, but his last lift was like 184, 85 kilos.
Is that something like 425?
That sounds about right.
Okay, yeah, I think that's where he ended.
So he lifted that on the clean and jerk, made it, and then just like said, I've entertained you people enough. I'll stop now. Like, it's not like it's not like he missed and had to stop. He was just like, you all have gotten your money's worth.
Yeah. At one point he was talking to Gary in between his rest. He's like, in an effort to keep the spirit of the event, I'm going to stop here or something. And we're like, okay. So
very gracious of Dimitri. Yeah. So, where do I want to go next? Let me ask this. When you guys you said you were kind of trying to be very intentional, very thoughtful with the weights for each division and for each spot. I assume either you guys individually or you guys had somebody run through and did like, trial and error on what weights you wanted to pick. How did you guys figure that out?
Well, we've done ladders in the past where we have a certain time domain, even like in our training, they're called like EMOMs. So every minute on the minute, right? So we did some style or every 90 second. So we've done that through our training for like the last 10 years. Like that's just something we've done. So we knew how it'll feel with those barbells. And him and I both have PR'd in EMOM style formats and just climbed to our best weight or our best lift. So we knew that the 50 seconds would be fine. 10-second transition gives you guys a minute. The weights are off of essentially like what we know in the CrossFit weightlifting community as being that like RX to elite level weights that people are typically lifting in the community. It goes off of like our personal best versus the greater community, what the very best lifters are lifting out there locally as well.
Okay. I don't know how to say this. 50 seconds is not enough time. I needed like 3 minutes, and I needed like a break for someone to come sweep the platform, and I needed better joints and a younger body and more talent. how can we infuse that into next year's event?
Oh gosh, that is a loaded question. I don't know if I can help you with that.
Despite my failings, and we can get into that too. I don't care. There were several people who I know because I train with them who are just pure weightlifters who did very, very well. My partner, Chris Camaneras, to the surprise of
Hmm.
no one, was very good. There was a combo from CHFP, Lauren McHugh and Lisa Bagby. Lisa got to the spotlight platform and I think PR'd multiple times on the clean and jerk.
Yes, yes.
So it's just a me problem, I think is what I'm getting at here.
I
But
also, Gary and I both, just sorry to interrupt you, we historically know the difference between like the men who sign up and the females who sign up. The females are like, oh, I don't believe in myself. I don't think I can do it. And they go and they impress themselves. And the guys are like, I can do this. And then they don't make it as far as they predict that they're going to make.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I was your stereotypical guy there. I look at these weights and I go, I've done that once before 4 years ago. Surely I can
Right.
just walk out there and do it again. No. So I you and I the three of us, you, me, and Gary talked before the event, and you guys said to me, I think that you'll think 50 seconds, like when you're in the event,
Oh,
50
yeah.
seconds will feel longer than you think it will. And I, being a whiny little weightlifter, said no way. But you guys were actually right. Like
Yeah.
in the event, once you have everybody, you've got a lifter, you got people lifting to your right, to your left, in front of you, you got the crowd, you got a time on the clock that you're trying to beat, you're trying to get your lift done so that your partner can also have time to lift. Like when all of that is going on, genuinely, you don't have time to think about like how tired you might actually be. Like maybe one of the downfalls to weightlifting is that, like, you've got plenty of time and space to think about whatever it is your brain wants
Mhm.
to like think about. And sometimes it's how tired you are and how much your muscles hurt or your lungs hurt or whatever. But like for me, at least, to your point, I will see that you guys were right. It did seem like an appropriate amount of time. The problem was more that I'm just not very good anymore. Not that I
Stop.
didn't have the
You need to
time
give
to make
yourself
the lift.
credit. I saw you on the platform, so there's proof right there.
So here's something that I've been thinking about the past day or so since the event. One of the things that I wanted your thoughts on.
Mhm.
It had been so I competed with Chris on Saturday. It was the first time in a while that I had been in a truly like a competition setting. Like we do fun stuff at the gym every now and then, but it's still like, the environment, it's training, like the stakes aren't that high. But like being back in a competition setting reminded me that competing in and of itself is a skill. Like you can't
Mhm.
just like waltz out there and be like, oh, I'm a competitor again. Like you have to train that part of it mentally, of competing emotionally, and there's a difference in competing from a physical standpoint.
Mhm.
And I had forgotten what a difference it was between just training and competing. And
Yeah.
I'm curious if you feel that way, I guess from a CrossFit perspective or anything else. Do you notice that to be true as well?
Yeah, I think it's a mindset thing, like
Yeah.
your expectations. So if your expectation is to get it to get to the platform, you're definitely going to have a heightened level of anxiety leading up to the event and even during the event. Your heart rate's going to be more elevated than if you go in and you're like, "Look, I want to get to the fourth bar," and that's underestimating yourself because
Yeah.
then you're not putting as much pressure on yourself and sometimes you'll end up performing better. So I think potentially it could be a mindset thing, but then also if you are looking to get to the spotlight bars or get to the very pinnacle of the event, you're going to have to train that mental component. You're going to have to
Cool.
visualize yourself underneath the spotlight with a lot of pressure on yourself,
Yeah.
and figure out how you're going to deal with that. So that's the mental component where you're going to have to visualize that.
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, for again, maybe this is just a me issue, but I'm curious for your thoughts on this. It's not just, or it wasn't just for me, the pressure of lifting the weight on the bar. It was
Mhm.
managing all of the other stressors while also trying to lift the weight on the bar, and it takes a degree of focus and a degree of discipline that I was just like out of practice. I was out of
Yeah.
shape in that component of it.
Yeah, totally. Sometimes I feel like in competition, there is like an element of like fake it till you make it,
Yeah,
right? Right.
yeah.
So like part of that's like, okay, I'm just gonna fake it until I don't make it, you know, and just see how it goes. But no, I agree with you there.
I do. I want to take a moment to apologize, and B, throw myself out onto the stake here. There was a moment. There were two moments in the ladder. The first was the very first snatch that I took, and I've been doing weightlifting competitions for a decade, longer than a decade. I know, and this was actually one of the cool parts of your competition is so you make the lift, you have to stand it up, and you have to wait for a down signal, which for CrossFitters, I imagine, may not be as like feel like home as it does to a weightlifter. But like in every weightlifting competition that is sanctioned anyway, you have to wait for a down signal. So it's not like I wasn't familiar with this. And I stood up my snatch, and I knew that I made it. And I put it down, and I walked away, and I was super proud because I got off to a good start. And then one of your judges came up to me and was like, "Hey, that was a no rep. You didn't wait for the down signal." You want to talk about embarrassment? I like immediately went to a 13, and because I was out of shape from like a discipline standpoint, like started like letting that
Get in
impact
your
like my
head.
degree of focus, which is
Yeah.
wild to me that like I can have lifted for as long as I have and then find out that I'm still relatively immature, you know?
No, I think you were probably thinking about so many other things that you're like, no,
Yeah.
I just got to get Chris on the bar,
Well, and
essentially.
that's part of what I was talking about in terms of like the focus and discipline element of being a competitor is like you get into shape in that way. So where you like you have one task. That task is to lift that bar, do that task, do it the way you're supposed to do it. Nothing else matters. Like it
Yeah.
takes experience, it takes reps getting that groove. And I was just like out of shape in that way, among others. And it was a fun moment to laugh about now, but in the moment, I was very, whew,
Yeah,
very.
I can connect to you on that. I like since coming back and from having a baby, my mind's just like all thinking about the baby and the family. And
Yeah.
so sometimes I'll finish a CrossFit workout and I won't even look at my time. I'll just like finish it and walk away. And in CrossFit, you have to look at your time so you know how fast you did it. So I'm just like in la la land, just I finished the workout. Okay. Same kind of concept that you're going for, that mental component.
So let me ask you, I assume maybe not like I've done a full debrief yet with Gary, but I imagine you guys have talked about it a little bit. You've
Mhm.
now done it 2 years. I guess I don't know what your expectations were, but it seemed to me like it's been a success both years. One, you guys are planning to continue this, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Great. And then my follow-up question, the one I'm most interested in is based on the way that the first two have gone, have you guys had any time yet to put any thought into how you want to grow the event and evolve it if so, or do you like kind of the spot that it's found itself in?
Yeah. Do you mean physical spot like revamps or like
Oh,
taking
no,
it
no,
out?
I'm sorry. I just
Okay.
meant like in terms of the
How it
event
is
itself
currently.
and how it flows, how it runs. Do you want to make like adjustments
Yeah.
or anything like that?
Yeah. So year one, we had the two spotlight bars and then you were done. Like you completed the ladder.
Okay.
But this year we added the element of we're going to add 5 pounds for females, 10 pounds for males until failure to give people an opportunity to PR if they're beyond the spotlight bars. So that component kind of, I thought it made a big difference in a good way. And we accounted for it on our time domain. So
Okay.
on the back end. So yeah, that component allowing people to kind of have more opportunities in the spotlight if they got there, that was like a better show for the crowd. It was a better, I guess, experience for them as well. Um, Year one, we blacked out the whole gym except for the front doors.
Okay.
So we had some light coming through. So we blacked out all of that. So having a little bit more light in our warm up area for next year. So more like movie theater running lights on the ground for next year in the walking areas when the lights go out,
Okay.
just to have a little bit more visual space in that area.
Cool.
Some glow in the dark features like glow in the dark tape for the
Okay.
boxes, and then potentially some elements for the spectators without it getting tacky. So we
Yeah.
went with white shirts this year so that the white would reflect the light for our judges and volunteers. So just different thoughtful components. But as far as the competition and weights, I don't see too many adjustments. We haven't heard too much feedback about, like, negative feedback about, like, oh, it's too big of a jump or too small of a jump, or, oh, I'm never going to make it there. The people who sign up for the ladder are confident they're going to make probably 3+ barbells and get a good experience. And that's kind of what we're aiming for.
Yeah. I think there's we want everybody to do well. Ideally, everyone would make it to the spotlight bar because it's like a very cool environment in which to lift. But I think maybe the carrot for folks is, if they did it this year and like you said, they make it 3 rungs onto the ladder, and they're still going to stick around and see, the rest of it. So now that's, a little bit motivation to say, okay, like my goal for next year is I want to make it to the 4th rung, or, I almost made it to the spotlight bar. That was so cool. I really want to do that. And it just gives you like a little bit of extra like push when you're training for the next, 11 months or whatever.
Yeah, totally. I feel like that's like, right. Like we're constantly trying to work up the ladder in life. So it's like the same kind of concept, but like in weightlifting. So like that 365 days go by and you're trying to get one more spot on the ladder. And in some cases, these athletes were like PRing by 20, 30 pounds. Like I know it's just a handful. So that's like all the way up through spotlight bars. So that's pretty cool.
What do we have to do? Like how many extra volunteers would we need to supply to get you and Gary to compete in next year's event?
Oh gosh. Is that a serious question?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The people want to see you and Gary. I don't know if you guys realize this. You're very good at this stuff. We would love to see you guys out there doing it.
That would be fun. It would just need somebody to do my job and do his job. So somebody that knows the weights on the barbells and we're open to that. So we've never done vector games, which is a male-female pair. I think before our career, before we stop doing anything competitive, that would be fun to do. And even to dabble in the ladder, that would be really cool.
Tell Gary, Chris is looking for a new partner because he's really fast. So Gary and Chris that seems like a fairer pairing for the both of them.
They would win body weight 100%, both of them.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, and also no is a totally acceptable answer. Abby and I, as you might imagine, love to talk. If you guys are looking for like, I don't know if you guys would want to do like a live stream component, but Abby and I could do like play-by-play and analysis of the event as it's going on.
Look, I love that idea. I think we should
find like professionals to do it for.
No, I love that, Steve. I think that's really cool. If you guys don't end up competing, I think that we can add that.
I think the only one. I think the people would love to see Abby compete. I think
so too.
Because she's, I don't know how much you know about Abby. She's a national level weightlifter, very, very, very skilled, and also very entertaining in a number of ways to watch lift. So I think that would be good for her. I'll find someone else to tandem the announcing with. You guys had somebody on the mic who was pretty good.
We got
they were
2 guys. Carrie and Josh, they're members of our gym. Yeah,
I love the wardrobe changes that they were doing. Like I think they wore like a half a dozen different hats throughout the entire
that was a surprise to me. They showed up with a bag of costumes, pretty much hats, and I was like, "Oh, what are they for?" They're like, "Here, take a hat," and I was like, "No, I'm good." They were trying to get me to wear the hat, but yeah, they love keeping things light and fun.
Yeah. Before we go, any from like a revamped standpoint, you guys are now, you host the Vector Games. You have hosted WSO Championships. Thank you for that, by the way. Your space was awesome. Everybody had a good time. And you host the Ladder Lifting Challenge. Do you guys have any other events like in the works that you're willing to share like now?
No, that's a good question. No, because we feel like if we do too much, it's going to get watered down. And we really want to have good quality experiences for the ladder and vector. We do in-house stuff like in-house competitions and like the opens coming around. So we'll do some open teams through our gym. So we do have fun things in our gym space, but typically just for members. But the greater community, those 2 events are what we put our lot of time and energy into over the year.
All right. And just to circle back on this, because this is a weightlifting podcast, you are, did I hear you earlier? You did like hard commit. You absolutely will do a weightlifting competition. Is that what I heard?
I would do that. Yeah, I would do
Okay.
that. My voice went up. Okay, so I know what that means, but I would.
All right, we will. Whenever you want to sign up for one, you sign
Okay,
up. We will make sure that you've got someone. We'll have support for you there. We'll have somebody who loads the bar in the back room. We'll have somebody who counts lifts for you. We'll have somebody who just tells you, "All right, Alea, now you got to go out there and lift," and then you just got to do your thing.
I can do that. Yeah, maybe because we worked with Jason from Bassa before,
Oh yeah,
so we might have to, go down there, do a little lifting, and see if he can be our coach for a little bit.
I am confident that Jason will will very much welcome that and will do a great job. Jason Morstein, for anybody who doesn't know, he runs Bassa Weightlifting, which is another very good space in the Baltimore area. Um, I I want you to pair with Jason so that I can make fun of Jason more. So what I need you to do, is to pair up with Jason. I want you to do as you otherwise would anyway. You're going to do very well at whatever competition that you compete in, and then even if it's fake, even if it's just like a play, like we won't tell anyone. No one on this podcast will snitch. Then I want you to just like lose your mind at him and just just yell at
Very
him.
out of
Like,
uncharacteristic of me, that would be.
wow, but that's if someone like loses their mind all the time, it kind of gets washed out. But like if you were to
Yeah.
do it, people are like, oh my gosh, he must have really messed up if Alea is upset with him. Like just like really create a scene so that we can give him some roasting. Love you,
Oh
Jason.
gosh, poor Jason.
Oh no, not poor
I'm
Jason.
just
Not poor.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
All right. Alea, before we go, do you have any questions for me?
No, I think I have a little idea going on in my head for next year with
Okay.
yourself, but
Oh wow.
we'll wait to share that after the podcast.
All right, cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Folks, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Soft Elbows. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Everyone have a great day.